Welcome to Giza. Welcome to Egypt. Welcome to Cairo. This here, the Great Pyramid of Giza, was built around 1,000 years before the birth of Moses, and it remained the largest man-made structure until around the 14th century. Today being the 7th day of the month of Adar, it is considered, generally speaking, to be the birth date and death date of Moses. So let's have a quick look to see what the Bible has to say about the birth and death of Moses. The book of Exodus, Shemos, begins, Ve'ela Shemos b'nei Yisrael. These are the names of the sons of Israel. Haboyim Mitzrayma, that came to Egypt. That came to Egypt. You see, the perspective is from Egypt. It's important, I think, to mention some level of what the historiosity, what my view anyway of the Bible is. And I think the most important thing to mention here is that most of what people think modern scholarship has done is to destroy the traditional biblical concept of the Bible. Not the case. What modern scholarship has done is it has massacred armies of straw men, armies of ridiculous beliefs regarding the Bible that the Bible itself never makes a claim for. The Bible itself does not claim to be the Word of God or the Word of Moses. God and Moses are characters in the Bible. They do not claim to be the narrator of the Bible. The Bible seems very clearly, from its own perspective, to be a conglomeration of records by an omniscient outside narrator. Beyond that, this isn't a scholarship class on that subject, but you can see the perspective of where a particular record came from the geography. Over here they're saying that came to Egypt. So it would seem that this originally possibly was copied from a record that was written in Egypt. So these are the names of the sons of Israel that came to Egypt: Es Yaakov, with Jacob, Ish uveso ba'u, each person with his household came. And these are the sons of Jacob: Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zevulon, Uvinyamin, Dan, V'Naftali, Gad, V'Asher, Vayhi kol nefesh Yotze Yerech Yaakov. And it turns out that all of these souls that came from the thigh of Jacob, Shivim Nafesh, were 70 souls. The Yosef and Joseph, Hayav Mitzrayim, was in Egypt. My given name is actually Moses Joseph. When I was circumcised, that was the name that I was given, Moshe Yosef. The wind here is quite extraordinary today. The Yosef and Joseph, Hayav Mitzrayim, was in Egypt. Vayamas Yosef, and Yosef died. V'chol Echav and all his brothers, v'chol Adorahu, and everyone alive in that generation. Uvenei Yisrael, and the sons of Israel, Paru, they were fruitful. Vayishritzu, and they increased like insects increase. Vayirbu, and they became numerous. Vayatznu, and they became strong. B'ma'od, ma'od, very, very much. Vatimolei ha'aretz osam, and the land was filled with them. Vayakam melech chadash, and a new king arose, al Mitzrayim, upon Egypt, asher lo yada es Yosef, who did not know Joseph. Vayomer alamo, and he said to his nation, Hine, behold, Am b'nei Yisrael rav va'otzu mimenu, this nation, the sons of Israel, is more and stronger than us. Hava nischak malo, let us try to outsmart them. Pen yirbe, lest they increase. V'hoy, and it'll happen, ki sekreno mechama, when a war occurs, v'nosav gam hu alsanenu, that he'll be a fifth column added to our enemies. V'nilcham banu, and will fight against us, v'olam min haaretz, and they will arise from the earth. Vayasimu alav, so he placed upon them sorei misim, tax collectors, laman anoso bisavlosam, in order to pain them with their suffering. Vayiven ori miskanos leFaro, and they built storage cities for Pharaoh, es Pisom ve'es Ramses, Pitom and Ramses. V'cha'asher yanu also, and as he, this nation of Israel, was pained, Kain yirbe, so he increased. V'chein yifrots, and so he broke out. Vayakutzu mipnei b'nei Yisrael, and the Egyptians had come to their end with the sons of Israel. Vaya'avidu Mitzrayim es b'nei Yisrael beforech, and the Egyptians worked the sons of Israel with hard labor. Vayamaru es chayehem, and they embittered their lives ba'avoda kasha, with hard work, b'chomer uvilvenim, with concrete and with bricks, v'chol avoda basada, with all kinds of work in the field. Is kol avodosam asher avdu behem beforech, all kinds of difficult labors they worked them. Vayomer melech Mitzrayim l'mialdos, and the king of the Egyptians said to the doulas, said to the midwives, ha'ivrios, the Hebrew ones, asher shema achas Shifra, one of them was Shifra, v'shema shein es Pua, and the second one's name was Pua. Vayomer, and he said, b'yaldechen es ha'ivrios, when you go to bear children for the Hebrews, ureisen al ha'avonim, and you see them upon the birthstone, Im benhu v'hamita, and if it's a son, you should kill them. V'hamita also, you should kill him. V'im basi, but if it's a girl, v'choya, you let it live. V'tirenna hamiyaldos es ha'olehim, but the midwives feared the God. V'lo asu, they did not do. Ka'asher diber alehen melech Mitzrayim, like the king of Egypt had said to them. V'tachayena es ha'yeladim. Instead, they gave life to the boys. Vayikra melech Mitzrayim l'mialdos, and the king of the Egyptians called for the midwives. Vayom lehen, he said to them, Madua asisana davar hazeh, why have you done this thing? V'tachayena es ha'yeladim, and you have let the boys live. V'tomarna hamialdos el paro, and the midwives responded to Pharaoh, Ki lo chanoshim hamitzriyos ivrios. The Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women. Ki chayos heina, they're wild. B'terem tavo aleim, before we even arrive there, hamialedes v'yaladu, before the midwives even arrive there, they've already given birth. Vayitev Elohim l'mialdos, and God was good to the midwives. Vayirav ha'am, and the nation increased. Vaya'atzim ma'od, and they became very strong. Vayihi ki yaru hamialdos asolehim vayas lahem batim, and it was because the midwives feared God that He made for them homes. Vayitzav paro l'chol amo lemor, and therefore Pharaoh commanded his entire nation, saying, Kol haben, every boy, hayilod, that is born, hayaora, into the river, into the Nile, tishlichuhu, you should send him. V'chol habas techayun, and every girl you shall allow to live. And so it was at this point that we come to Moses. Today is the 7th day of the month of Adar. Today is traditionally considered the day for the birth and death of Moses, especially here in Egypt, was considered a very, very important day. And so we're reading right now the 2nd chapter, we just read the 1st, the 2nd chapter of Exodus, the birth of Moses, and then we'll read the final chapter of the 5 books of Moses regarding the death of Moses, both of which are said to have occurred on this date, the 7th date of the month of Adar. So at this point, you see, the families had broken apart. Men and women were not, the Hebrew men and women, the Jewish men and women, the children of Israel, they were not together intimately anymore, because it was a given that if they were, half their children would be murdered, and the other half would be stolen. And this is where the story of Moses begins, with his father. Vayelech ish mi beis Levi, and a man, this is the word ish that we've mentioned before in our videos, someone who takes responsibility, someone who says, I'm going to do it. A man went out from the house of Levi, vayikach es bas Levi, and he took a daughter from the house of Levi. Vatahar ha'isha, the woman became pregnant, vatelet bein, she gave birth to a son, vatera osa kitov, and she saw that he was healthy, kitofu, that he was healthy, vatitzpenehu shloshi yerachim, and she hid him for 3 months. V'lo yachla od hatzmino, she couldn't hide him any longer. Vatikach lo, and she took for him tevas gomem, a pitch basket. I don't know the chemicals, the bitumen or whatever sort of chemicals they use over here, but tevas gomem. Vatachmra b'chemer uvazefes, and she put these chemicals, whatever, she lined it with tar, whatever it was, whatever the words were in those days. Vatosem bo asayeled, and she placed the child in it. Vatosem basuf, she placed him in the reeds, al safas hayor, on the lip of the sea. Vatesatzav achoso merachok. See, this man who went out from Levi, this was not the first time that he's with this woman from Levi. They were already married. You can tell by the fact that he has an older brother and an older sister. The older sister showing up over here. Vatesatzav achoso merachok. His sister, Moses' sister, he's not yet called Moses, the baby's sister, stood watch from far away. L'deya, to know, ma yasalo, what will be with the baby. Vatered vas paro lirchotz al yaor, and the daughter of Pharaoh went to wash at the river. V'naro Sarah, and her maidservants hochos al yad hayaor are at the hand of the river. Vatera es hateva besochasuf, and she saw this. What is the word usually used? It's not ark, right? Teva, the little basket, whatever it is, in the reeds. Vatishlach es hamasa, and she sent forth her arm, or perhaps her maidservant, vatikocheha, and she took it. Vatiftach, and she opened it. Vatireu es hayeled, and she saw the child. V'hine na'ar bocha, and behold, it was a small boy crying. Vatachmol alav, and she had pity on him. Vatomer, and she said, Meyaldei ha'ivrim zeh, this must be one of the sons of the Hebrews, which her father had condemned to death. Vatomer achoso abas paro, and his sister, the boy's sister, Miriam, said to the daughter of Pharaoh, Ha'elech, should I go, v'karasilach isha menakes min ha'ivrios, and I'll call a nursing woman, because, of course, the Pharaoh's daughter had not just given birth, she's unable to nurse. She says, should I call a nursing woman from the Hebrews, v'teinik lach es hayeled, and she will nurse for you this child? V'tomer la bas paro, and the daughter of Pharaoh said, Lechi, go. V'telech ha'alma, and the young girl went, v'tikra es em hayeled, and she called for the mother of the child. V'tomer la bas paro, and the daughter of Pharaoh said, Helichi es hayeled, take this boy, hazeh, this boy, Vehenikuhu li, and nurse him and wean him for me. Va'ani etein es scharech, and I'll pay you for it. V'tikach ha'isha ha'yeled v'tinikehu, and the woman took the boy and she nursed him. Vayigdal ha'yeled, and the boy grew up. V'tiviyehu, and he was brought levas Paro, to the daughter of Pharaoh. Vayhi lo levain, and he became to her as a son. V'tikra shemo Moshe, or Mosa. She called him Moshe. V'tomer, for she said, Ki min hamayim mishisihu, from the water I have made him Moshe. This is something you're not going to hear from anybody else. At least I haven't come across anyone else saying it, but it's obvious. It's almost certainly the intentional meaning of the word. Traditionally, people translate because Vatomar, she said, Ki min hamayim mishisihu. She called him Moshe because from the water I drew him. First of all, that would assume that she was speaking Hebrew. Why would the daughter of Pharaoh speak Hebrew? Second of all, that word should be mashachtihu. I drew him, not mishisihu. It's very obvious. If you know the name Tutmos, or Anchmos, or Akmos, or Ramses, Meses, or Mosa, was a royal name given to princes of Egypt, those that were destined possibly to become the Pharaoh. And here the daughter of Pharaoh has said, yes, I didn't give birth to him, but Vayigdal ha'yeled, the boy grew up, right, when after his mother finished nursing him, Vativiyehu, he was brought levas Paro, to the daughter of Pharaoh, Vayhi lo levain, she became to him as a son. And therefore, Vatikra shemo Moshe, or Mosa, she called him Moshe, which, like I said, Tutmos, Anchmos, you see it rather frequently among the royal families of the ancient Egyptian pharaohs of that time. But Tomer, and she said, how can I call him Moshe? Ki min hamayim mishisihu, by giving him life, by rescuing his life. I made him Moses out of the water. Yes, I didn't give birth to him. By taking him out of the water, I Mosesed him. That's almost certainly the original intention of these words that we're reading over here. So far, Moses has been only a character. Moses has been bandied about. He's been subject to the whims of others. Over here is where Moses comes into his own. And we mentioned before, in our final chance for a fresh start video, about Moses growing up and becoming a man. Vayhi, and it was, Vayom Mahem, in those days, Vayigdal Moshe grew up, Vayetze Alechav, he went out to his brothers, Vayar B'Savlosam, he saw their suffering, Vayar Ish Mitzri, and he saw an Egyptian man, Maka Ish Ivri, hit a Hebrew man, Me'echav, from among his brothers. Even though technically he didn't have to regard them as his brothers, nonetheless, he had that traditional sort of the blessing curse that goes along throughout all of Jewish history of identifying with the underdog. He had that trait. He identified these Hebrews as his brothers, whom he did not have to at all. So he sees this Egyptian man hitting a Hebrew man from his brothers. Vayifen kovacho, and he turned this way and that way. Vayar ki ein ish. He saw there's no man. There's nobody stepping up to stop this murder taking place in broad daylight. Vayaket es ha-Mitzri. So he hit the Egyptian, vayitmanehu b'chol, and he buried him in the sand. Vayetze b'yom hasheni, he went out on the second day, v'hine, and behold, shnei anoshim ivrim nitzim. Two Hebrew men are fighting. Vayomer l'Rasha, he said to the evil one, Lama sakereyecha, why are you hitting your re'ah? That's the word which essentially means friend, but not like chaver. Chaver relates to the word chibur, a friend that you actually know in real life, a friend that you're close to, that you have some connection with. But re'echa is somebody who is from your own people. Why are you hitting your friend? Vayomer, and that person said, the Rasha said, Mi samcha le'ish, who made you such a big man? Who made you a man? You think you're a man? This is what my teacher, Rabbi Noach Weinberg, used to always say. He used to always quote what the rabbis had said 2,000 years ago, where there are no men, try to be a man. That's all that I'm doing. I don't think I'm worthy of it, but I'm trying because I don't see anyone else. So they say, who made you a man, and sar, and a leader, v'shofet, and a judge, aleinu, upon us? Halahargeni ata omer? Are you planning to kill me, ka'asher haragta es ha-Mitzri, like you killed the Egyptian? Vayira Moshe, and Moshe was afraid. Vayomer, and he said, Achein no dahadavar, behold, the matter is known, which has double meaning. In other words, people know what I did, and therefore I can get in trouble. And second of all, now I see why the people are not being redeemed. Now I see why the law of the universe, the law of truth, what we might call the law of God, hasn't come forth to save these people, because they don't have unity, they don't have mutual love and respect for each other. They're willing to turn on each other. Vayishma Paro es hadavar, and Pharaoh heard the matter, hazeh, this matter, Vayavakesh laharog es Moshe, and he sought to kill Moses. Vayivrach Moshe mipnei Paro, and Moses ran away from before Pharaoh. Vayeshev be'eretz Midyan, he dwelt in the land of Midyan. Vayeshev ala be'er, and he dwelt at the well. And then it goes on to discuss how Moses lived over there, he got married, he had children, and suddenly God appears to him and says that it's your job to take the Jews out, which is something incredible that hopefully we'll read a different day. Having read the first two chapters of the book of Exodus, the second book of the 5 books of Moses. Moses, of course, is not mentioned in the first one, the book of Genesis. We'll now read the final chapter of the 5 books of Moses. This is Deuteronomy chapter 34, discussing the death of Moses. The birth and death of Moses are both traditionally considered to have happened, especially here in Egypt, where it was taken very, very seriously, on this date, the 7th day of the month of Adar. Chapter 34 of Deuteronomy. Vaya'al Moshe, and Moses went up, Me'arvos Moab, from Arabian Moab, or the plains of Moab, Al Har Nevo, to Mount Nebo, Rosh HaPisgah, the top of the peak, Asher al Pnei Yerecho, that is before the face of Jericho. Vayareu Yehovah es kol ha'aretz, and Yehovah showed him the entire land, es Hagilad, Gilead ad Dan, until Dan. V'es kol Naphtali, and all the land of Naphtali, v'es Eretz Ephraim u'Menashe, the land of Ephraim and Menashe, v'es kol Eretz Yehuda, and all the land of Judah, ad Hayam ha'acharon, until the final ocean. V'es HaNegev, and the Negev, v'es HaKikar, and the plains, Bikas Yerecho, Ir HaTmorim ad Tzor, from the valley of Jericho, the city of dates, until Tzor. Vayomer Yehovah Elav, and Yehovah said to him, Zos ha'aretz, this is the land, Asher nishbati, that I have vowed, LaAvraham, to Abraham, LeYitzchak, to Isaac, LeYaakov, and to Jacob. Lamor, saying, Lizaracha, to your seed, etnena I will give it. Heriisicha ve'einecha, v'shama lo sa'avor. You have been shown to see it with your eyes, but you will not cross over. Vayamas Sham Moshe, and Moses died there, Eved Yehovah, the servant of Yehovah. Vayamas Sham Moshe, and Moses died there, Eved Yehovah, the servant of Yehovah, Be'eretz Moab, in the land of Moab, Al Pi Yehovah, at the mouth of Yehovah. Vayikbar also, and he buried him, God buried him, Vagai, in the valley, Be'eretz Moab, in the land of Moab, Mul Beis Pa'or, near Beis Pa'or, V'lo Yada Ish Eskuraso ad Hayom Hazeh, and no man has known the place of his burial until this day. Umoshe ben Meya ve'esrim shana, and Moses was 120 years old b'moso when he died. Lo chahaso eno, his eye had not become dim, v'lo nas lecho, and his moisture had not gone. Vayivku b'nei Yisrael es Moshe ba'arvos Moab shloshim yom, and the sons of Israel cried for Moses in the plains of Moab for 30 days. Vayitmu yimei v'chi evel Moshe, and the days of crying and mourning for Moses had come to an end. Yehoshua bin Nun, and Joshua the son of Nun, Mole Ruach Chachma, was filled with the wind of wisdom. Ki samach Moshe es yadav olav, because Moses had given him smicha. Moses had leaned his hand on him. Vayishma elav b'nei Yisrael, and the sons of Israel listened to him. Vayasu, and they did kasher tziva Yehovah es Moshe, like Yehovah commanded Moses. V'lo kam navi od b'Yisrael, and another prophet has not arisen in Israel, Kemoshe, like Moses. Asher yida'o Yehovah panim el panim, that knew Yehovah face to face. L'chol ha'osot, to all the signs, v'hamoftim, and the miracles. Asher shalacho Yehovah la'asos bi'eretz Mitzrayim, that Yehovah had sent for him to do in the land of Egypt, l'Pharaoh, before Pharaoh, u'l'chol avadav, before all his servants, u'l'chol arzo, before all his land, u'l'chol hayad ha'chazaka, and to all of the mighty hand, u'l'chol hamora hagadol, and all of the great sights, asher asa Moshe, that Moses did, la'enei kol Yisrael, before the eyes of all Israel. May his life, his legacy, his memory, and his spirit continue to shine onto this world and to give us great life and eventual, as close to a messianic utopia as we human beings can get in this world. Amen.